I think something my team has gotten really good at too is like we manage the guest list from start to finish, right, for our clients. So, and a lot of the communication comes through our office, like emails, like we get the emails, we're helping respond to emails, like, because a lot of our clients are going digital now. So there's a website they go through, they email, and it comes to us and we're helping monitor for the client, send it to the client, let them respond or suggest on what they want to have us respond on. So, like if it's a very, personal question. But it also allows us a little insight on our guest list and like kind of understanding who they are and what they are too. And I think the team has gotten really good. Like by the time the weekend rolls around, if it's a corporate event, social event, whatever, or a wedding, like we kind of know these guest names a little bit too. And I think it's just really, it's fun. Again, like a surprise and delight moment where Jordan, for example, in my office will be like, oh, hi, Mr. and Mrs. blah, blah, blah. And they're like, how did you know our name? But it's like, I think again, it's showing that level of attention to detail and things like that too, that I think just makes the guests feel good.
Welcome to The Bay Builds, the podcast spotlighting the founders and executives behind Tampa Bay's biggest brands. I'm your host, Tracie Domino, and today's episode is a little personal for me. Before I founded Event Outfitters, I spent years as a luxury event planner. I know the industry from the inside, so when I tell you that Anna Richardson of Anna Lucia Events is the person in this market I respect most, I want you to understand exactly what that means coming from me. Anna is the founder of Anna Lucia Events, a global boutique brand delivering sensory experiences across weddings, corporate events, social celebrations, and art activations. She's been featured in Martha Stewart Weddings, Brides Magazine, Inside Weddings, and the Huffington Post, and has built a client base that doesn't just return, they returned for generations. Our paths diverged when I stepped away from planning to build Event Outfitters, but Anna kept going and kept raising the bar. Today, I finally get to have the conversation I wanted to have for a long time. Anna, welcome to The Bay Builds. When you named your company, Anna Lucia Events, it, of course, carries your name. Take us back to the moment when you decided to build something so personal to you. What was going on in your life at that time?
Oh boy. So originally, if you go way, way back, like when I first started the company, it was in 2007, 2008. And it was like in my previous world too, I was in real estate development and as a project manager for a real estate development company. And so when I was starting the company, I actually went with a very generic name called Exceptional Events. So super original. But fast forward, obviously realizing too, like exceptional events didn't really mean anything personally to me. So that was a big thing too. I did change it to Lucia Paul Design, which actually are both of my middle names, Lucia, and then Paulette is my full middle name, but shortened it to Paul. But everybody thought like, oh, who's Paul, your partner, kind of a thing. So we went through a rebranding again. And that was like, I think in 2014, 15. And actually, it might have been 2016. I'm losing track of time. But we went through a rebranding with TPD Design House and really went through an exercise of like where I think from a branding standpoint, what was personal, what was what. And so everybody just was like, I think you should just use your full name, like your first name and middle name. And so that's where we landed was Anna Lucia, and then Anna Lucia Events. And then we actually shortened it even more to just Anna Lucia as like a whole entity name, because we've also talked about bringing in other elements too within like the entities within the parent company, I guess. So, yeah. So, but Anna Lucia, it's a personal name, obviously my name and my namesake. But I think it was just important to kind of face with the name kind of a situation. And a lot of people that we talked to too recommended that. But at the same time, looking at it from if I ever wanted to sell the company, there's the challenges that kind of come with that too, because everybody wants you as the person. And we even see those challenges sometimes too, working with clients sometimes where they're like, but we want Anna and we don't want the other team who's more than capable of, being just as great, if not better sometimes on some of the projects. So there's like blessings and curses, I think, with the name. But at the end of the day, it does, I think, signify like who I am and who we are as a company too. And we've really tried to create the branding around that to kind of reflect that as well. So,
and it's so like personal to you and your style and what you created over all this time that it makes sense.
Yeah,
it's great. So was there a person, a mentor, or even like a moment of, I don't want to say failure, but like something crazy that happened that like cracked open and made you into the player like that you are today?
I think a lot of it, yes. I feel like a lot of my life experiences from starting in like real estate development, that is where I really, I think, learned my grit. And even growing up in a family business of construction, like really taught me the hard work ethic and things like that too. And I also attribute, I think, a lot of it to, I used to, and I still do actually show horses, and now my daughter shows horses too. But growing up with horses and having to be responsible and things like that too, like kind of all did that. So I've had a lot of different, I think, phases in my life that have definitely, influenced where I am and who I am and the type of planner and the type of business person I am. I think too, it's like each of the segments and each of the, I don't know, moments in my life from when I was a teenager all the way through to now, I think has definitely influenced like how I do business and how I, work with clients and how I service clients and things like that too. And it's something, I think it's like, you learn it over time. It's not an easy trait to teach. And I'm also learning that a lot with some of my, my team sometimes, where it's like you have to have the experience and like over the years to kind of get there. And I kind of assume sometimes that everybody just has it because I have it, or like the innate sense of like reading clients or understanding or like really learning how to listen to clients too is a big thing. But I do feel like in each of my, like, again, going back to the real estate development world, like that was like the grit kind of came from there because like I worked with mostly men. And so you had, as a female, you kind of had to like step up and be strong and be a little bit more louder or boisterous to like get the attention in the room kind of. And I think that kind of helped me too with a lot of the business dealings I do with clients now, because I'm dealing with a lot of fathers most of the time, with especially when it comes to the wedding side, but even in our corporate like client situations too, like I know how to approach a lot of these men and just like how to talk to them and how they want to, I guess, have information presented to them too, which is helpful, and kind of part of it too. Where I think it's like been, I think, a good thing that I learned over the years too with that. So,
well, it's so interesting you say that, because one of the things I wanted to ask you was this industry has such a reputation for being female dominated, and it doesn't always get taken as seriously at the business level. So have you ever been in the room where someone underestimated you because of that, or even just in like the business world in general, and how did you deal with that?
I think a lot of the time too, the approach is like they're going to explain to me how the process is done. And that's my favorite thing, is sometimes, especially with corporate clients and some of the higher powered corporate clients that we worked with over the years. And eventually it turns into like a level of respect on both, both sides. But I think it's also like, I also find myself, and I think most females in our industry, we really have to prove ourselves to like, we are actually business owners and we are running this like a business versus just a hobby, which we get that a lot too. It's like, oh, nice little hobby or side thing that you do. And I'm like, no, it's not, but thank you, but I think that's the assumption sometimes too with like, unfortunately, like women get that kind of.
And what you're doing, like you've built this multifaceted global brand here out of Tampa Bay, and there is no real barrier to entry in this industry. So there are people running hobbies. So
yeah,
like I don't think that's the same, in any case. But did you ever doubt that the being here in Tampa could be the launch pad for something at this level? Like, what made you stay here in Tampa?
Well, I actually started my company in Michigan. And then when I moved from Michigan back to Florida, because I'm originally from Florida, I really looked at the markets too, like where I wanted to be. And I also kind of looked at like, where would I be taken more serious in regards to like starting it like in a smaller market versus a larger market. And I kind of like, I love Miami, but I also don't love Miami. So it was like one option that I kind of looked at briefly. And I was like, well, maybe I should go there because we're of an international client. But I also knew too that wasn't like my comfort level of speed, like within what Miami is. I love it, but it's just not me. And so I had actually, with my previous job too with real estate development, I was actually in Tampa at the time before I moved to Michigan. And so I was just like, well, I probably should just go back to Tampa, and because I feel like the market's big enough, but it's not too big. But I also felt like too, there was a lot of opportunity because I did my research before coming into it too, and moving the company from Michigan down to see who was here. And I realized there wasn't a lot of, and I think at the time too, when I started this company, like in 2008, and when I transitioned down here, 2009, 2010, like the wedding industry was not what it was now.
No.
Like now it was like Martha Stewart was kind of bringing it all to, and that was like when publications were really starting to happen. And I think a lot of it too is just like, why not? Let's try this. But I also felt going into a smaller market, like if it was Naples or Fort Myers, where I'm originally from, which we do a lot of business down there, but I think having my company there for me didn't make sense. And so, but I also wanted to do the corporate side of it too. And I felt like we had a better corporate reach with creating relationships with corporate clients in a larger market like Tampa. So Tampa really kind of became like home for me. And I kind of just felt the drawback too after I moved back from Michigan too, was like this was where I was meant to be with it too. And I do feel like while we don't do a ton of events, like we're doing more now, but like for a while we weren't really doing a lot in Tampa. We were everywhere else, but it still was a good home base too. And I think also too, like a lot of our corporate clients took us a little bit more serious being in a market like Tampa, because they kind of, it's a little bit of a psychology play, I feel like sometimes, which I hate that. But unfortunately, I think that's just the way business really truly is sometimes. So,
and I think it's so interesting too, like just the luxury event business in general. Like, I'm not sure, like back in 08, 09, like the rest of the country, that got a really hard time taking Tampa seriously. But now it's like just equally on par, I think, with everyone.
Agreed. And I attribute it to one of our former clients too that came into the Tampa market and just changed everything, or one of our current clients too still. But, it's like they brought in another energy too by bringing more businesses in, redeveloping the entire downtown. And I think that was a big thing too. And I honestly think that helped all of us. It helped like every industry and every business in Tampa has benefited from that, including the private institutions and things like that too as well, where a lot more money's been generated. And now that you see too, even after like COVID, we had an influx of people moving in, and for other economic reasons, a lot of people have moved into this market because it is kind of like, we always kind of jokingly say it's like the best, little city in like in Florida, biggest city, like, or biggest little city in Florida. And I really truly believe that though too. And I honestly, we evaluate this constantly, like where else would I want to be, like in Florida? And I really can't say I'd want to be anywhere else but Tampa. It's just a great city. And I think it's great for families too, because you've got a good family mix, but it's also great young, for bringing in new talent too, in regards to people that want to move, from New York or someplace like that too. That it helps us even from a hiring perspective, where if we are looking to bring somebody in, outside, Tampa is an interesting place to bring in. And my husband, who's in a completely different industry, and he goes through the same process too, and he's hiring people in his industry and bringing people in. He can attract people from other markets that are just like in bigger markets too, that want to come. They still want that city feel, but they want to be a little bit in this smaller setting versus like in Atlanta or New York or someplace like that too.
It's really just like over the last 20 years, like it's how Tampa has grown up so much and it's just become such a player. It's just really just so exciting, and how events have grown with that.
Yes.
And some of your clients, some of just the people in town, seeing charity events, seeing weddings really step up. And then like once people see it, they're like, oh, we could do this. Like we could do New York parties. We could do LA parties here, Miami parties here. And I think it's just really raised the bar for what is acceptable, right?
Agreed. And I do feel like a lot of our counterparts within the industry and other planners too, like have picked strategically to be in New York or LA or whatever like that. And by all means, like they have made themselves, very successful in those markets too. But I do feel like they're also like, sometimes the connotation too in Tampa was just like, oh, we need to hire outside to bring in. And I think now they're seeing that like there's a lot of talent here, and that's what we're trying to help, and also try to help elevate, I think, our vendors too, and just be like, you have to step up. Like you have to achieve to be better in this, offering more services and offering and in some cases you need to raise your prices to show that, as long as you have the value there, but like make it to where it's like, because otherwise people are just, it is that, again, back to that psychology of just like, why are they so low? Because maybe they're not good enough. And then they bring in somebody from, the outside. And we're actually going through that right now with a client, that's based out of Ohio, but we're doing a very large wedding down in Naples. And they kind of went through, they originally reached out to us, didn't hire us, and then came back to us like 6 months later, let go of the other planner, came back to us and said, we made a mistake. We want to come back with you. But they had already locked in a lot of the vendors too. And we're going through some of those conversations too, just like, did we make other mistakes along the way? But again, they kind of think they need to bring somebody from the outside in versus like really kind of focusing on what local talent is. So I think we're always like, it's a little bit of an uphill battle. And we do lose, we will lose a lot of really big weddings to a lot of the bigger names that are out there in the industry, which is fine. And we know that's our competition, but it's like, I think sometimes too, again, they think they're going to get something better or have a better experience. And then in some cases, in some situations, that's not always the case too. So we hear the both sides of it too. And it's like, we are just as good. It's not better,
No,
you know?
exactly.
And I think something that we pride ourselves on too is just like the attention to detail and the follow through and just being transparent. I think, and just really truly having conversations and like very real conversations, and starting from the budget, the process and how we start that with clients, which we hear all the time that doesn't happen, or like even the vendors aren't given the proper scope from the get-go. And so then the client at the end of it is really upset because they're just like, well, you told us at the beginning it was going to cost X, and then now we're triple, and it's just, and we've gone through that, and we're experiencing that with one of our amazing clients right now. And I feel bad because it's just is like, I wish we could have gotten ahead of this, but we inherited something. And so we've been trying to help navigate it. But it also isn't fair to the vendors because the vendors weren't given the proper scope or realistic expectations to help them for the client to make sure that they know what they need to stay within the parameters and stuff like that. So it's a full circle thing, but I think I think that's something too that a lot of clients, again, think going outside the market or bringing people into, but I think we're trying to help change that narrative a little bit too, because we do, but it's also like making sure we're helping and educating each other too within the industry locally or within the entire, like within the state too. And having those conversations of saying like transparency is key, listening is key, those type of things.
Well, the talent here is really like stepped up.
Yes.
So it shakes out, right? Like the
Mhm.
people, the pre-rises to the top, which is just always so exciting to see. Because as someone who was on that side and now not, I always like to go to the parties now.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like this is a great party. Like, and that's an awesome experience. Like
Mhm.
guest experience has really just increased so dramatically. And that's like, thanks to people like you, like that's
Oh.
that is why, like it's just like such a great thing to be
Mhm.
able to be experience. And on that note, like you describe your company as delivering these sensory experiences. Most event planners talk about logistics. So when you talk about feeling, when did you realize that was your differentiator? And how do you actually engineer emotion into an event space?
I do call ourselves kind of a production company because we are producing the entire event from start to finish in most cases, because we do full service planning and design, like an interior designer, it's like, or, I'm trying to think what other, like an architect or so, like we're helping build all that from the very beginning through. And it is about building the guest experience in addition to the client experience. The one thing we try to do is we interview our clients just as much as they interview us. So we want to make sure it's a client that I feel like understands or will understand our process and respect our process. But at the same time, they feel the same way about them. Like we are going to be listening to them and listening to what their wants are. But what we find is a lot of our clients come to us and like, you tell us what to do, like guide us through this process and from start to finish, because they want that experience. They want, they want to be, something that's different or unique and things like that too for their guests, but also for themselves. They want to enjoy it and they want to enjoy the process. And so I think the big thing is like, we do the logistics. We have to, right? That's all part of the plan. Like if you are a planner, you have to do logistics and you have to understand like load in and like refueling fuel for generators and like, all those, like you have to know all those things that have to get done to make the event day happen. But it's also like where we have a really good core team that handles a lot of that for me. So I don't have to get into the nitty gritty. I can do the high level initial meetings, making sure all those checklists are being, checked off and things like that too. So nothing's missed, but then they run with it and take care of it. And then it lets me focus with the client too on like what the experience is, what the tabletop looks like, not only from a decor and design standpoint, but also entertainment flow and things like that too, and bringing in unique different elements too that might make it better and just a different experience from and we really try not to repeat things twice with client. I think that's the challenge. We're in this world of Pinterest and Instagram and, TikTok and everything like that, which is great. It's a great tool. But sometimes I just keep seeing things repeated over and over again, or like just not. And I think it's just, and it becomes like an easy cookie cutter kind of a thing where I think a lot of planners to their detriment are like just redoing things and making it look slightly different. But it's like also not really giving a new, fresh experience to the client or to the guests. And I think my challenge always for me is like, how do we make this different and not repeat? Currently right now too, we had a wedding last November, and we have another wedding coming up this November for the same family. And the this is the groom's family now that we're doing the wedding for, but this past, or the bride's family, it was the groom's or the bride to the sister groom, whatever. But the sister the groom from this last wedding is the one that's getting married now. So, but they have very similar taste and very similar wants on things like that too. So like my challenge right now is like, how do we make this different, and how do we make it feel different and like the experience too. But like, what was fun about working with them back in this November wedding this last year, they are in the hospitality industry.
Oh, wow.
In food and beverage, and she was an interior designer. So like it was like the best of both worlds for me because I'm like, they get that side of it, but I had so much fun with her because she was just like, let's run with whatever, like with the design and stuff like that too. And she had a great, beautiful taste. I love this family so much, but it was so much fun kind of creating because they really like trusted us to like create these experiences, but they also became the best partner too, because it was like, how can we make this better? Like, how can we do this? And how, and just things like that too. And it's the same conversations we're having with the groom's family now bride, but they are all about fun. And I think it's also too, like the client has to bring the fun to the table a little bit, the energy, right? Like that's so important. And I think when we get really lucky to have a family like that, it makes our job a little bit easier because that like already they're going to make this event fun because whatever energy they bring into that space, the rest of the guests are going to feel. And I always tell clients that too.
Fun too.
Oh my God. I mean, at this wedding, you saw a glimpse of because there's a lot of crossover in the guest list for this. They just they never wanted to get off the dance floor. They were just a fun crowd. And we were with them, 3 days of events and they all became kind of family at that, literally now we're doing, the sister's wedding, but it just was like, it's just amazing the energy on that end too. But I think it's always a challenge for me is like, how do we bring in something different? And so that's what I love. And if I'm not challenged, then I'm bored.
Sure, no, of
I mean, who's not, right? So I think it's just really, but I also, it's experiences that I've had that I want to bring to them. And like, I also am a big proponent of like going and experiencing certain things like in my world, just on like what our clients are experiencing. Cause you need to understand what their wants are and what their needs are and things like that too, or what they're used to. Right. And I think that's a big thing. That's part of like the education and research. And I'm trying to also, as a part of, a bonus program for my team is like giving them those experiences too, is like maybe a weekend stay at a hotel that they would never go to themselves because they can't, it's just budget doesn't make sense. But like, if that's something that we can extend to kind of so they know what our clients are wanting and expecting. And like, and it just experiences what the, like, for example, like a Four Seasons, like what level of service they're going to bring and how do we bring that in our process to the clients. And then like the little surprise and delights are like the big thing that I really loved. And I have to attribute that saying to one of my past clients that like, that was her thing. She based in Miami, amazing family. We did a couple events with them too, but she always like would call it surprise and delight. And I'm like, I love that term because it's just such a great moment because it is true. It's like even the little things that go into like a surprise and delight, like they turn a corner and it's like, oh my gosh, this is, like whatever it is, like a different environment with lighting or a different, like something, just a little thing that gets delivered onto their pillow at the end of the night or, like those type of things I think are just so important too in regards to like how you make the guests feel, but also how you're making the client feel too. And at the end of the day, they are the hosts of these events. And like, we need to be an extension of that to like make that look effortless for them. Like we're treading water behind the scenes, which is totally fine, but that's our job. Right. But we want it to make it feel like the client as the host is just like, and we want them to enjoy it and be a guest at their own event too. And that's the biggest thing. So I think it's just coming up with creative ideas, making sure we can execute them, and then making sure the vendors that we bring into are going to take it above and beyond. I think is the most important thing too, as well. So it's, it takes a village.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I think that the guests are that surprise and delight, like you said, they for sure notice that because we've all been to a party that you walk in the first 5 minutes, you know exactly everything that is happening at that party. And then you've been to, amazing events where, oh, now this is happening. Oh, and I would have never thought that was going to happen, and that is a completely different experience. And that is what everyone wants.
Agreed. And I think something my team has gotten really good at too is like, we manage the guest list from start to finish, right, for our clients. So, and a lot of the communication comes through our office, like emails, like we get the emails, we're helping respond to emails, like, because a lot of our clients are going digital now. So there's a website they go through, they email, and it comes to us and we're helping monitor for the client, send it to the client, let them respond or suggest on what they want to have us respond on. So, like if it's a very, personal question. but it also allows us a little insight on our guest list and like kind of understanding who they are and what they are too. And I think the team has gotten really good. Like by the time the weekend rolls around, if it's a corporate event, social event, whatever, or a wedding, like we kind of know these guest names a little bit too. And I think it's just really, it's fun. Again, like a surprise and delight moment where Jordan, for example, in my office will be like, oh, hi, Mr. and Mrs. blah, blah, blah. And they're like, how did you know our name? But it's just, it's like, I think again, it's showing that level of attention to detail and things like that too, that I think just makes the guests feel good. And I think it's just also too, the client's like, oh my God, I'm so proud to have, like, this is an extension of what they are and what they want to be, and I think that's something too, that it just makes them feel like as the investment that they've made in us too. We've become an extension of their family, but also too, like, we're taking this serious and we're delivering and making sure that everything runs smooth and beautiful, just making it more fun, and like going back to like the experience kind of element too. Like a welcome party that we did, we had like blender bikes. Like it was just a fun thing where the guests would get on and make their own cocktail, but it's just, again, another surprise and delight moment where it just was like a fun kind of thing. Our guests were like, oh, this is, like I just kind of unexpected at a welcome party, but it was just another way to, like, again, I think it's like, but again, you have to rely like a lot on what the client is and how, what their personality is too. But if you know that they're willing to kind of think outside the box or do something more a little bit out there that's a little bit more fun than not this, keeping it very serious or anything like that too, it gives us a lot of flexibility to kind of come up with some really creative ideas.
Well, I'm sure if you're dealing with multiple events over multiple days, you get the opportunity to do different things because you don't want all like 3 formal events. No one wants to go to that.
And I don't think our clients really want that. I mean, they like the rehearsal dinner, for example, with the wedding. They'd like the rehearsal dinner to be a little bit more formal, right? So but it's a smaller group always typically, and it's like a third of the guest list or a half, and depending on how big the wedding is, and how many people are in their wedding party, which lately we've had very large wedding parties. But I think the big thing, and then welcome party is always much more casual, much more fun. And it's also to, like, our clients are also knowing that their guests are making the effort because majority of our weddings are destination weddings. So they're making the effort to get there. So they want them to just feel relaxed, where it's like, and then, keeping the more formality, especially for the next day, for the wedding day itself. Even with the stationery and like in the entertainment, I mean, we guide them through that process of like, let's create an atmosphere that's reflective of what we want each event to feel like. And then also from a design standpoint too, we really like what the venues are, and we design with the venue, and I would say majority of our clients come to us where we have the ability to help them pick the venues before. So we're kind of picking what makes the most sense to match them, but also like, why do you need to change an entire space sometimes? Like, I think that's the thing too. Like, let's find really great spaces that we can work with to enhance and almost make it feel like it's always been there. And yes, our clients still spend a lot of money to make it like something more and make it how they want, but it looks more natural versus like forced. And I think that's the big, the thing that I love too is that challenge as well. Sometimes it's like, when we have the ability to help them pick their venues, it's great because it also helps them save money sometimes too, because it's like, we don't need to cover an entire ballroom or something like that because the carpet's ugly and just, whatever. But if we can find a space for them that's reflective of it too, but it kind of, we, again, enhancing it and get to spend money, more of the budget in other places too that are going to be more impactful for something versus like hiding, things.
Right. Stuff that's like the logistics really that no one sees the value of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So now just a little pivot here. You've expanded now is these art activations, which is a little different, but what you're doing. But you were saying before about these other things under your parent company. Walk me through that leap a little bit. Was that a calculated move, a gut decision? Did something just kind of happen?
I've grown up. My mom's an artist in her own right, and I have a lot of family members that are like professional artists, and I think it always like influenced by that too. So I've always been around really pretty things, and like I just feel like having that, and art's always been and I love whatever. Tampa Museum of Art is one of our clients, and we do their 2 signature events every year too. And I will say her name, Raylene, who I love dearly. Like she's like, you are an artist, and I'm like, I'm not, but she's like, no, but you are, because like what you do and the experience that you bring. And I just was like, and I really kind of thought about that because I don't think of myself as an artist because I'm more of like a designer, engineer. Like, I feel like I'm more of an architect kind of a personality. And yes, I design, but I'm like not an interior designer. But but I think the art world, I love, and honestly, it influences a lot of what we do and what we bring in. And we look at things on how we can kind of like ceiling treatments and, like I study a lot of fabric and design, textiles and things like that too. A lot of textile artists, like just a big influence in regards to just how they work with different things and, the different materials and stuff like that too. And I also have been given the opportunity with one of our clients too as well that was very big into the arts. And so constantly doing art activations and bringing large art activations into the Tampa Bay area. And so we've had the ability to work with some pretty amazing artists or their artist teams and also produce events to either kick off the installations that we're going in and things like that too. So it kind of happened a little bit organically for us, thankfully to one of our clients. But it also was just like, this is a really cool world of just really kind of seeing these, how these artists, and I think sometimes too, the artists themselves can't afford to post some of these events in some case, depending on who the artist is and stuff like that. But if they have somebody that believes in them, is bringing them into a market or something like that, though, too, typically there's events around that. So it's we love kind of being a part of that too. And then we've also with the Tampa Museum of Art, we just introduced them to a gentleman over in St. Pete who does concrete form as his form of, and he does, I think he used to be a graffiti artist. Now he's kind of rolled into and he actually has a construction concrete company is his full-time job, but he has just a really cool art mind. And so even introducing him and bringing him into an event that we just did a couple weeks ago at the Tampa Museum of Art was just a fun way to make an introduction of kind of bringing our worlds together. But it helps us, and and we've been able to work with University of Tampa with Tampa Museum of Art too, and bringing in students to produce some of the costumes for one of our events back in November, which is a really fun experience too. And it just was seeing how they kind of all meld and kind of mold together. I think that makes it exciting for me, and more so too. And I think I was why not add this to our repertoire too if we have somebody, and it doesn't happen all the time. They're a little bit more few and far between from an event standpoint, but it's part of our list of what we can do. We can do large activations. We shut down Water Street and did a huge, lighting installation down the middle of the, street. So, I mean, but having that, I think, in our back pocket of knowing we can do these things, and something that we're, marketing and kind of, but they're more my happy projects sometimes too, where I think it's just a fun, again, expression of art, for lack of better words, but also too, I think showcasing and having the ability to kind of bring, and if a client who is, maybe, sponsoring the artist to come in to do these things too, wants to host a party, then it's a double win for us too. So we can also do the activation, but also the event with it too. And and obviously the event is inspired by the artist. So there's a lot of fun collaborations there too as well that we get to kind of work with that you don't always have the ability to have the, access to, I guess, and being able to kind of use some of their designs or textiles or, different things like that too, which is a lot of fun. So.
Well, I'm not sure if you would say this, but I'll say it on your behalf. I think it's some of those big art activations are part of what I think has increased the exposure of Tampa
100%
in a big way. And you're a massive part of that. And, well, seriously, there's, a lot of people want to believe that they would know how to, close down Water Street, but that's not something every planner or production company knows even where to begin on.
Yeah.
And the ability
it's a lot of phone calls.
A lot of begging.
A lot of begging. They're what do we need? Yeah. Making friends with every department.
But seriously, though, those events the media attention is massive, and the ability for almost every member of the public to participate. Not everyone gets to go to a huge over-the-top luxury wedding.
No.
Everyone can go to when the city puts on or
and
sponsors.
That I think has been the big thing too with the one client that really was doing a lot of these activations over the past few years too. That was they wanted to give access to everybody. The event that we would host on the night to kick it off would be for, their close friends and family and things like that too. And it's just more a celebratory moment to kind of kick off what was happening. But the accessibility of bringing, and I think that's the beauty of art too, which I also love, is just everybody should have access to it and everybody can have access to it. It's how do we get that reach and bring these bigger artists that wouldn't be in a market like Tampa, how do we get them in here? And I think that was the big thing too, is just like, let's bring, like, if you went to Milan or you went to New York or you went to Florence, which one of the artists that we had actually brought in, I had actually first found in Florence a couple of years ago and recommended it. And then at the time it was SVP with Water Street, like, I was like, we have to bring some of his pieces in. And so they did. And so it was just, but it was like, it was kind of cool to see that happen. Like, again, in a travel situation, I was just randomly. And now the other day, my husband was laughing. He's like, wait, that's the artist. He was on like 60 Minutes. And I just was like, yes, he's like blown up to a point, like a whole nother level. And his art is so cool. But again, I think that's the fun part about is seeing the accessibility of just like a family that couldn't travel to, may not be able to have the ability to go to Florence or Europe or, to go see a lot of these pieces too. It's like, if we can start getting, and I would love to see more of this happening. And I hope it continues to happen too, but like bringing that art to Tampa also puts us on a different stage where it's like, yes, they'll go into markets like Miami and New York and stuff like that with some of these traveling things. But again, I think it's like finding unique things too that like wouldn't typically have access to in normal situations too. But I think that's the beauty of the art world too. It's like, they really, and artists have that belief too. I think it's like they want everybody to experience it and see it and feel it. That's their hope. But I think when we have that ability to find a partner or a client that's able to do that and bring it to a market like this, like it's a win-win for everybody because, like you said, it brings really good press to the Tampa Bay area. And I think, again, lights us up on a stage that typically we wouldn't be on in some cases. And I think also to our sports industry here has been phenomenal at doing that with the Lightning and the Bucks and in the Rays too. I think hopefully with that move and things, but I think it's just, again, we are getting more and more on like that stage that I think we deserve to be on too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just making people understand, like when someone brings in that art, like everyone else in town realizes, oh, you could do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone was even paying attention to the fact that that was even one of the choices, before that.
Yeah.
That's for the corporations in town and even the nonprofits who have the ability to do that. It's, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes.
Definitely.
So on a different note, though, but on still a big challenge in the event world. Just a year and a half ago, we survived 2 massive back-to-back hurricanes, like coming off the heels.
It's all the PTSD.
Like I have heart palpitations as I say it out loud, but like just for the people listening, how do you keep a family calm when Mother Nature has inserted herself into the guest list?
It's literally, I always say this from the very beginning with our clients, I'm like, we can control everything, but I cannot control the weather. Like we can plan furiously from start to finish from now, and we will have a plan A, B, C, and D. Like we will have all these things in place, and we will make sure the contracts have clauses and everything if we have to move or shift things, like to make sure we have, having those conversations. And also, it's really important to pick your vendors that will work with you to make these adjustments and not make it difficult, because we've all experienced that. I think it's just setting the tone from the very beginning. I'm just like, Mother Nature is going to be Mother Nature. Like we cannot control it. There's nothing we can do, but let's make sure we plan in advance and we know what your ideal situation, if everything's outside, that's what our plan A is going to be. We have to have a plan B, right? And in some cases, even a plan C, which we literally have for a wedding down at Ocean Reef later this year too. And I think it's just like setting that tone, that expectation, having those real conversations with them versus just like glazing over it and be like, we'll deal with it when we get there, because that's when you get in trouble. I think it sets them at ease, because then it's like they know that you're on it and that you're aware of it and your team's got, and I think it's just as like, again, just get up front, get ahead of it and just like reassure them that it's like we are going to do everything we can to mitigate this situation.
Right.
And if it's a hurricane, that's a whole nother thing. So like, for example, with Helene and Milton, everybody in Tampa got affected. My office flooded. We had 2 feet of water in there. So we were like in the midst of all this, plus producing, we had back-to-back events right during that time frame too. A big wedding coming up, a big gala coming up right at the same time. A lot of things changed, right? And not only are we dealing with, and luckily my house didn't flood, but our garage flooded. So like our house was okay. So I wasn't dealing with that personally, but our entire neighborhood, we had, so many people and friends and family that were affected and lost their homes and things like that too. And it was awful. So you're trying to like help them and help your community, but also to like calm your clients. And with one particular client too, we had a wedding at a venue down in Naples. It flooded and it was completely like wiped off the map, like at this point where they couldn't do the wedding at all there. And so like basically a month before, because it actually, Helene was okay because they were able to start doing some of the reconstruction to get it back. They flooded with that one, and then when Milton came through, it just wiped everything out, and there was no way within a month that they could get it from, and there's like mounds of sand. It was just a mess. And so, luckily, again, relationships. We had a great relationship with the Ritz-Carlton in Naples, and we were able to literally move this entire wedding from La Playa, which was where the wedding, and they got hit really hard because they're right on the beach. And so we had to shift everything. And La Playa was like, we will give you your money back. Like they were really gracious about it too. And again, looking at those clauses, we understood with the force majeure and all the thing, all that stuff in there too, which is also really important as a planner. You have to know contracts. And again, I attribute that back to my world of construction where I contract law. So, but anyways, we were able to shift all that. But it was just like, again, within like 12 hours, we had like a new answer for the client. And it just, again, I always say to my team and to everybody, like, do not present a problem until we have 5 solutions, to offer them. We all know that there's an issue and we know that there's a problem, but like, don't freak them out without like a solution. Right. And just like, don't say like, well, we can't do that. That's my biggest pet peeve. And I hate when vendors do that to me too. And I'm just like, so you're telling me it can't be done, but you have no solution and no fix for it. Like, okay, don't talk to me until you have, so that's my biggest thing too, is just like making sure. So we came back, we had a couple venues that we could have moved to, but the Ritz was the best option and it made the most sense because she originally wanted it there. And for some reason, I couldn't remember what it was. I don't know if it was cost or what, but we wound up moving everything over there too. And the Ritz was amazing. Like it just was, the best process ever. But again, it was a situation it was out of everybody's control. And so obviously the invitations had already gone out, like everything was out. So we had to send a new invitation. We did a digital to everybody, letting everybody know the venue changed, making all the shifts. And then all the guests that were staying at the hotel at La Playa couldn't stay there because the hotel, it was just shut down. And so we had to move guests. The Ritz, I think, accommodated and like basically gave them the same rate that they were. It was just like, it was a real blessing. But again, relationship, it's just like having those relationships with these vendors and these venues too are so important, as it's such an important part of our business. But I think it's also too like instilling that confidence and like calmness into the client too, to let them know it's going to be fine. And it may not be what you originally wanted, but we're going to always have a solution and we're always going to fix it. And we're going to be at the bat for you to make sure that if something like this happens, and I think, and it's even something too, we have a wedding in Europe in August, and what's happening right now in the Middle East. I literally had Jordan and I said, look at the contract, please, and just see what the force majeure is with war. And I hate saying that, but like, that's a reality right now that we're actually looking at, and, it's part of our world, it's just, look at what happened with COVID too. Like
COVID, I always say, thankfully they told us it was only 2 weeks at the beginning, so we all jumped off the skyway, but
literally. Yeah. I know. I feel like that never happened, but
I feel I'm just so thankful we live in Florida. That's like another time where being in Tampa was such a blessing for the events industry. Like all those New York planners who all thought like they had the best situation on earth, they all suddenly had a Florida office. And we really lucked out, I think, in that situation, in a terrible situation, but the best case of that. There's always something. There's always something that can always happen. And events are, I always say, an event is a Broadway show with no dress rehearsal, and there's no way to practice the exact details that are going to happen on that day.
No
you can plan and whose vendor's truck's going to break down, or
it'll happen, right? We get a call. I'm like, oh, our truck broke down. We're trying to get another truck there to switch it over, and we're like, guys, we have like 4 hours, like you got to get here. Luckily with some of our load-ins, like we have a week in advance, so it's like if we're off a day, like it's not as noticeable. But when it's like a quick setup breakdown, that's a whole nother thing, which is a stressful, but again, the client doesn't know this and we're managing it all, and we're
exactly. It's just, but you just never can. You never know all the plans and all the backup plans. You still just can't know what order the things that are going to happen are going to happen.
Well, and sometimes things happen within the family, like, just like health issues and things. We've had that a few times in the last couple of years too, where major health issues had popped up during the planning process, and it shifts everything. And you have to shift the mindset, but it's also, again, remaining calm and just giving them the assurance everything's going to be fine. You need to focus on that. We will deal with all this and we'll figure it out. If we need to move, we move. If we need to shift it to someplace. And in a couple of cases, we have had to do that over the years. But I think it's just like, again, the experience allows us to be able to do that. I know you know that too from your, like you did this just as much as we've done it. But it's just, it's just all part of the process of just, I think, being, you've got to plan ahead, and you kind of have to have a little bit of a crystal ball in some cases too.
Well, the years of experience give you the ability to see like what can happen, at least. And that's what is the value in people who have done this as long as you have. And that's where that is the difference. Like that really is what sets, I think, that is, and your team, your Anna Lucia team, but like your vendor team also, because like you pick people who know what's going on.
A perfect example. So talking about permitting, it's like permitting 101. And again, attribute it back to my construction world. I understand that whole process and permitting and things like that too. But we had a really unfortunate situation happen back in November for our welcome party, which was at a venue, and I won't say any names, but down in Naples. And the day of, the fire marshal shows up, and we were never told. We were told like a couple weeks before that, like, oh, we might need to have a permit. I'm like, wait a second, we've done a million events here. Like you've always told us we've never had to have permits. Well, for some reason, this venue was being targeted, and I guess the venue owner hadn't really gone through the proper process throughout the years and stuff like that too. Well, we were the ones that got fined, or not fined, but like we had the issue. And we literally had to move a 350 person event 5.5 hours before the event start time. Like we had already loaded in, setup was happening, all this thing. And it was just like but an unforeseen situation where, again, we are always dotting our I's and crossing our T's and like double checking, triple checking and things like that too. But if a venue tells us you don't have and we're going by their word, it's in all the emails and things like that too. We even had an email from the city saying, oh, the worst case, you'll get $150 fine if
right.
Okay. And the client or the vendor or the venue just was like, and literally had an email just like, oh, it'll be fine. That's the worst case scenario, but you'll be fine. Just go ahead and go, and we're like, are you sure? Because we just want to make, well, there we were. And again, vendor relationship, the Four Seasons just had opened up down there. We were able to literally move the entire event over to them that day and have the party there that night. And it was the craziest situation, but I just was like, never, and I don't cry, and I cried that day. I just was like, I don't even know what to do. Again, amazing clients. They just like, we trust you. We know you have this under, it's out of your control. There's nothing we can do. They weren't happy, but it was like, they knew at the end of the day, it was just like, whatever. But again, we had a couple solutions, and the Four Seasons wound up being the best situation possible, literally just opened that weekend. And so, but, and again, the relationship with them, they just went above and beyond too and made it happen. And luckily the caterer that we had was able to move over there, and they were able to still, it was pretty much a good transition to get everything in place. There's a few rental items that we couldn't set up, but other than that, it was like, it all worked out beautifully. But again, like an unforeseen situation, you're just like, oh my God, you can't plan for this.
You cannot. And I remember years ago, USA Today had like the top 5 most stressful jobs, and it had event planner as number 5, and numbers 1 through 4 carry a weapon as part of their normal day-to-day business. And I was like, well, going back to the whole thought of like women not being taken seriously, or event people, it's like, this is one of the most intense and stressful jobs. Well, you're to people, and with the ability to deal with people in heightened emotional situations.
I mean, in some cases, we're managing millions. I mean, most of our events are millions of dollars that over, and it's like, it's building a house, right? Like it's the same stress as but I also laugh too, again, being in the construction industry, they don't have a hard deadline. Construction timelines change all the time. And I'm just like, we have a deadline. Like we have D-Day. Like it's whatever that event day is, that we can't extend. Like if it's not ready, then I don't know, you don't have that opportunity to kind of be like, oh, we'll push it off a week. It doesn't happen like that.
Work that way. No, I've always said that. I said, our job is like a general contractor. Yeah, we have an actual deadline.
And my husband and I built our house a couple years ago, and it just was like, I was so frustrated with our builder, because I just was like, come on. Like we had a 6-month delay of getting into our house. And I'm like, if you kept telling, if I had clients telling, or if I told my clients like, oh, we need to push your wedding off 6 months, they'd be like, no. It's like, there's just not, I'm like, I don't have this luxury. And it was very frustrating though, because I just was like, I don't know. And again, being the female, and he would, as a builder, would talk down. And I'm just like, you know.
You're like, I would have had it on time.
Yeah.
So,
and I had a schedule. But.
And back, so on that note, like, so you work with clients in these emotionally charged states, on these emotional days of their life. Like, it's reasonable why they're, emotional. So I feel like this is what people are going to want to know. What's like the worst, tell us the Bridezilla moment that you've had to deal with. Now, don't give us a diplomatic answer and don't give us a name. You don't have to give a name, but tell us, because I think most of the time we all are very blessed with like wonderful, the nicest clients ever. But every so often there is like a person who just does not understand. Like,
we've had there's been a few along the ways that we can never make happy. Like, I've had one that told me at the end of the night, like as I'm walking her out and holding her up, she's just like, you just weren't there for us. And I just was like, what? I'm literally like, I've been at your beck and call, but I think it's just, again, it comes down to personality. And I think it's just like, we've been very fortunate. And especially in the past couple of years too, we have the best clients right now. And I'm not just saying that just to like, but I honestly, like, the most gracious, every personality is different. And so it's like, going back to psychology, which it's like you have to kind of know how to handle each of these personalities. And I love it because it has taught me so much patience in general, like with my own personal, with my kids, with everything too. But I'm like, when the type of clients that we work with, you have to be patient with certain things because some people take longer to make decisions than others, and things like that too. And it's like, and how do you disseminate information without overwhelming and things like that too. But I will say we've had a few clients that have just been like, why did you hire us? Like, why? Like, you hate me. Like, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing and I can't do anything nicer, be any nicer, more responsive or whatever. Like, it's still not going to be enough. So you do get some of those clients sometimes. One story, this goes back to when I first started the company too, up in Michigan. And I had a client that just was so, like, she was the toughest client. And honestly, to this day, probably my most toughest client. And just a very strong businesswoman, which I respected her on that. I love her and I loved her. But I just was like, I think I cried a couple times with this one too, where it just was like she would throw things out that I think just as a challenge to see if we could get them done. And we always did, but it just was like so much added stress and so much like it just made the process not fun to where you're just like, and also like, God, and she just wasn't nice sometimes and not nice. I think that's the hardest part too. I'm like, you can be a bitch or be mean, like, to me. Don't treat my vendors or don't treat my team like, right. Don't be an asshole, like, excuse my language, but just be kind. Like, there's a way that you can ask for things. And like, but I also think too, within our world right now, there's a lot of like people that feel like they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Entitled to a lot more than I think. And like, when I think sometimes we do get that in, and actually we see it more with some of the guests of the client, like of these events too, where like it's a very entitled guest versus like, in that part, I'm just like mind boggled. I'm just like, and they're like changing things with the client. I'm like, no, you can't move your seating chart around. Like, you can't move it to another table. Like, I just like, what, so it's labeled things like that too. But this one particular client, like, I remember the morning of her wedding, she calls me at like 6 a.m. and, she goes, I want a pianist she called me at 11 o'clock that night. She's like, at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, I want to have a grand piano in my room. She was at a Ritz-Carlton. And I want them playing to softly, like starting off softly to like start playing and wake me up. And then also too, I want to have a violinist as well, but they can't play until like I'm up. And then I just was like, you're kidding me? And she's like, no.
We're going to squeeze that through the door.
Literally.
Hotel room.
I don't know how we made the earth and moon and everything, like just moved. Sure enough, as we rolled, like at midnight, I again called the band. I just was like, what do we have? What do we get? And so they brought in a piano and like made it all like, and through the Ritz-Carlton, they're like, we will make this happen. And she was in like the presidential suite. So they were able to sneak it in. It was just like, but I just was like, this is insane. But she just, and then she like looked at me. She's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's good enough. And I just was like, girl, you are on your own. Like this, But it's just like things like that too. I mean, just crazy that, and we've had other brides come up and just like in the middle, I'm just like, enjoy your wedding. Stop. Like I think it's just a control thing. They cannot relinquish control sometimes. Yelling at us because the caviar wasn't right. I just like little thing. And I'm just like, okay. And I've gotten to the point where I've just gotten thick skin where I'm just like, it does not bother me. I'm just like, okay, we're for it. Like, I have children and I'm told that I'm mean and every single day this morning, exactly, in particular on the way to school, I just was told I was you're just a horrible mom. So, but I think it's just the challenges too. Sometimes you just get we get a lot of weird requests, but recently I would say in the last couple of years, but I also think too, it goes back to like, we interview our clients just as much and so we know the red flags now and we go through an extensive questionnaire, like, which sometimes my team's just like, do we really? I'm like, yes, because it lets me see. And I honestly can tell how they respond and like how much information they provide, like shows me what type of person they are too. And it's just but it lets me kind of get some insight before we even talk to them of what type of person is it type A, type B, type, like you can kind of
the right fit.
No,
just, just because you
and that's okay.
Or just because you are in the right area doesn't mean that, that you want to work with that, that they should want with it. I'm like, if this is not a right fit, it needs to feel good on both sides. And we've had a lot of clients that haven't moved forward with us because it just was like, we weren't responsive and not like we respond within like 5 minutes. But it's just, but it's like little things like that where just like they want, and I'm like, I remember one time a potential client like reached out and I think it was like her executive assistant like called our office and was like, I have to talk to Anna and we will have time between 12 and 1 today. And that's the only time. And I wasn't in the office. I was on a site visit out of town. And my team member just said, unfortunately, she is out, but tomorrow we can schedule a call. She cannot break away from it. She's like literally with a client that they flew down. It's like back-to-back meetings all day. There's no way that she's going to be able to step out. Well, then if she doesn't call me back today, she's not getting the job. And we said, okay, sorry, but it just was like that mentality also is not our client. Like I have a little bit of grace, and it just is like, again, we go above and beyond and we're going to over deliver and go way above and beyond majority of anybody else that usually does. But I just was like, come on, Is there going to be that when the first call?
That's a huge red flag, right? You're just like, and I'm like, God, if this is the assistant, I can't even imagine. I mean, sometimes we've also noticed, and I'm sure you've experienced this with like talent, like celebrity talent and things like that too. Like the celebrity itself isn't the worst person; it's their team. Yeah, they're the most, and so we never know.
There's an inverse relationship sometimes. Like the more famous the person, the less intense the rider.
Yes,
and like the less famous the person, the more
1,000%. Yeah, 1,000%. And we see that with some of these bands too. That are like, we get these bands that are not that great and they're the worst to work with, and then the ones that are just like amazing, they're just like, oh yeah, we'll make it work, because they understand the client experience, they understand the stress of these events, and it's like, be a team player. That's all we're asking, and nobody's going to be taken advantage of or anything like that too, but we just like, you got to be flexible sometimes and you got to like go with the flow. And these clients sometimes will change their mind last minute and we're like, adjust, I mean, we've had it too where we've had to like, I've had to teach my team over the years too. I'm like, because like if we set up one way, they walk in and they don't want it, we're going to move it. Like, right. And just like, it's not just because it was on the floor plan for the last, like, we're going to move it for them because we want them to be happy. Because at the end of the day, it's not our event.
Right.
It's like those type of things too, where you got it. But again, with the vendors and the team and the creative partners that you work with, you need that whole feeling with them too, as regards. Yeah.
That way. They're all on board.
Yeah.
So now, like, we're saying from the beginning to now, like, you've earned features in some of like the biggest publications, Martha Stewart Weddings, Brides, Over the Moon. It's a level of recognition most people in the industry never reach. How did the press and the outside validation fuel your growth early on? And does it still drive you, or has your definition of success quietly shifted over time?
It has absolutely shifted. I think previously publications were a big thing, especially like right when I started my company too, because it was like Martha Stewart was really big and like really coming into the whole scene. And she was really the first one that brought, I think a real kind of attention to the wedding industry when she had Martha Stewart Weddings. And we were listed as one of the top 20 planners in the United States at the time too, which was a huge thing for me. But I think during that time, it was important because I was still kind of new in the industry. still kind of, but also publications meant something, I feel like now the publications, we don't have a really strong publication situation happening. Like Brides has gone away, Martha Stewart Weddings. I mean, and the not like it's there, but it's not, Style Me Pretty was great. And they still are doing a great job too. And a lot of them are in like Over the Moon and things like that too. But we're now seeing this shift where it's like, it's more for our clients versus for us. Like for us, our idea, and I think, our like kind of guidelines in regards to success is more based on our clients and client referrals. We really don't do a lot of marketing outside of just like a few things here and there. And I actually am awful at this, but like networking, I haven't been great at either. But like it just, again, we're so focused on our clients and the business and like, and actually running the business behind the scenes too. It's working for us. And I don't know, and I think if we get a publication, it's a great little feather in our cap, but it's not like the things that we're striving for. At this point, we're now striving it for the client if the client wants it. Like the majority of our clients do want to get the opportunity to be published in it too. So we are all for that, and we will support it. And the photographers love it. And, because it's really great exposure for the photographers too, which we wind up actually seeing it's better exposure for, I think, photographers, because it's like your visuals are there. And the planning part, it all depends on how whoever is writing the article or doing it, like how they write it. Like you can fill out these questionnaires and we do it side by side with the client, and the clients are always very gracious in making sure we get as much, a lot of shout out, things like that too, and recognition throughout the thing. But like, again, sometimes the publications take it and it's like, they'll take the story the way they want it to, but, and again, if you have a PR company, they can help kind of massage that process too. But when we do get published, we don't get leads from that. We don't get, that much from it too. And I go back and forth with like the lists now, like the top planner list too. And I think they help some, but I also think the issue is right now too, they continue to keep promoting the same planners over and over again. And we also have noticed too, and I won't say the name of which one, but a few of the planners have come to me and said, we never even got asked about being put on this list. They did no like due diligence to really kind of cross-check to make sure. And like one company that was listed was out of business. And I just was like, why are they pulling these names? And they like literally shut their doors and like they just were done with it, like after COVID. And I feel like it's a disservice, I think, to clients if they are making decisions based on who's on these lists. For us, it is how we service our clients and like making sure we do the best job for them versus us focusing on all these other things, which I think again are like great little feathers in the cap, but it's not our end all be all. For us, it's really making sure our clients are our best marketing tool, because it's like the experience that they've had are usually why we get the next job, or it's somebody that attended the event and they're like, exactly. Oh, we need, and that's, we have a lot of legacy clients that we continue to work with too. Majority of the current clients included, like we've done a minimum of 2 events for some, we've done 4 to 6, and it's just like in one legacy client, we've done, over 20 events for them over the last, 15 years. But it's like that to me is more important of continuing that versus like the publications and things like that too. But again, I think the whole marketing world of that type of thing has shifted so much since when we started. I mean, even when you started too, we've all seen that shift. It's been interesting to kind of watch it. But I kind of have, I don't know, I have mixed feelings on the publications too. I just feel like, and there's a lot of what I also find very interesting too, like interior designers have to pay to be in these magazines. Like I don't know where the assumption and why it became this way too, but like we as event industry people don't pay anything. Like some of us do pay for PR, PR firms and things like that to help it, and they get placements and things like that too. But like a lot of these, like
the lists.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to pay to be on a lot of these things too. And like an interior designer, if they are like published in a brand magazine, they're paying their photographers. They're paying to do all that. Where we are fortunate because we have a photographer that a client's hired. So again, that's why it's like we are shifting it more as like if the client wants it, that we will absolutely do it. But it's their investment. They've made this investment with us. They've made this investment with them. So we kind of look at it from that perspective versus like, it's not our right to publish this wedding without the client's approval. It's like, and even the photographer too shouldn't, I mean, yes, I know that a lot of the clauses in these contracts, But like at the same day, like if you look at any other industry in the world, like they have to financially pay for these things to happen. Like where we're just like, oh, well, your client's paying for all this, bake rolling it, let's go. I saw there's that argument too. And I think we've kind of leaned on the side of just like, if the client wants it, then we're thankful and gracious for that too. But it's not going to be something we're like pushing if it's something the client doesn't want either,
Sure.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
So then with all that and with like all the things that you've seen change and like running the whole business, like what keeps you up at night? Like what, not like not like the part that's like the fun and the passion, but like what's the part that makes you question if it's worth it? Like what is that? Or even, I think someone even looking to get into this, like the part that maybe they need to know. It's like,
yeah, I mean, it's not easy. And I think also too, a lot of the times, like from the outside looking in, they're like, oh, she's an owner, she's da 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 da. Like, and I think founders in general get this. I have a lot of founder friends right now. They're doing much bigger everything than I'm like a small potato, but like big companies that there's big tech stuff that they're doing. And I'm just watching from this, and I'm so thankful because it also gives me so much insight of just like, it's not just me, but it's also like the magnitude of what they're doing. But it's also like, we all have these moments of just what's keeping us up at night is like making payroll, right. Making sure we can pay insurance, making sure, like, yes, we see these big numbers coming in that we're, managing and contracting and with our costs and things like that too. But like, I'm responsible for a lot of people. I'm not only responsible for my core team, the main team that I have to pay salaries to, and like health insurance, which we cover, and like a lot, there's a lot of expenses that are there. That's what keeps me up at night. And it's just as like, with the event industry too, like we do projections, budget. I, go through my yearly and go with my accountant and stuff like that. And we make budget projections. It's like seeing like what our cash flow looks like for the next 12 months and go through the P&Ls and all that stuff. I think the big thing is understanding your numbers and then like making sure what's in 12 months, are we going to be in a good spot like to go into the next 12 months, or are we going to be in a not good spot? And with the hurricanes did not help us, and so we were in a kind of a challenging moment too of just like where for whatever reason, nobody was booking. There's a big shift, right? And I think also too, we always see this every 4 years with the election. Mm-hmm. Like everybody stops spending money, like, for big investments. So they kind of wait to see what's going to happen. And so we had kind of a double whammy between the hurricanes and then the election. And so it was just like things slow down and it's very cyclical, and we've noticed that too. But that's what keeps me up at night too, is just as like, I can't just project to be like, we know we're going to have these 20 contracts coming in. We don't, and
like weddings, right? Like the family may repeat, but it's not like
we don't
typical
bill,
right? Like, and maybe in 10 years, like like in a lot of other businesses where like it's a repeat customer who every year has this same thing happen. It's like, well, that was amazing. We think you're the best person ever, and we would be happy to pay you again, but we have no reason to ever pay you ever again.
Exactly, and that's exactly the conversation sometimes. And they're like, but we'll refer you to whoever, and they do. And that's the beauty of it too. But again, also too, some of these contract processes take 2 months, 3 months. Like the client will reach out and then they go through like, especially if the wedding's a year and a half or 2 years out, like in some cases too, like it can be a 2 to 3 month process before the contract's signed.
Right.
And so you're just like, again, you can't really, it's not like a 2-week turnaround on some of these things. Some cases we are if it's a shorter time frame, but I would say on average, it takes about 2 months from start to finish to actually get a signed contract with deposits. That's probably a little bit on us, but like, because we do go through a budgeting exercise with them, which a lot of planners don't do they're just like, if I'm going to be paid for this time, but I'm in the belief of like, let's get a budget and just because it's the most uncomfortable conversation. Nobody wants to talk about budget, but again, the transparency and just getting ahead of it. So because our fees are dictated by the budget also too, because we're, we have a flat, but we have a percentage that goes into it too with regards, it's like a 3-part structure. It makes a big difference to a lot of these clients. And so I'm like, again, if it's the right fit, this is what it looks like. And again, you're going to see every contract, you're going to sign, you're going to see this. So again, the transparency, but going through that exercise it takes a minute, it's not like we can quickly. And again, we need to understand the scope and what venues you're looking at and things like that. If a venue hasn't been selected, a little bit easier if they come to us and they've got the venue selected, because then we can get estimates really kind of close to it. based on that too, and obviously experience. But again, that's what keeps me up at night too. Is just is like I can't really plan a year out, like unless we know we have events booked for the next year, or and just making sure we can sustain it, because some years are great and some others are just like, ooh. So it's like making sure, again, you're setting stuff aside for a rainy day or a hurricane, or,
And you were saying about the hurricanes, but I think it was so interesting that a lot of event friends mentioned in that year, because it was like also another like triple whammy, because no one started dating in 2020.
No.
So like they didn't date, they didn't get engaged, so they didn't get married in 2024. So which most people would never like, that would never like cross their mind of like being a problem.
It's true though.
But like they did it for like 2 years, like in a part of the country no one met. And like we say, like we're here in Florida and all his weddings maybe here, destination, but like the client may live in New York City. And if God was in New York City, like they didn't go out anywhere for like 2 years. So like they met no one. And I think that's just an eye-opening like side effect of this business that is just so interesting. And I just really think you really hit the nail on the head there for like people who are looking at this business and want to get into it. It is wonderful and amazing. And I believe there is no greater feeling on earth than showing a client and maybe her mother or, that ballroom or tent looks like before the guests see it, what they've dreamt about and have been planning for months and months, maybe their whole life. And when they see that and that excitement, there is no feeling in any job I could possibly ever imagine. And you get to experience that. And that is like, it's incredible. But it is really hard.
It is hard. And I think that's the thing too. But I think what drives me, and I think you have to have this personality a little bit too, is like making people happy. That's my love language, is like I'll put everybody first before myself, which is not good. And I don't suggest that to anybody. But it helps with this industry too, because you really have to, like, we are in the business of hospitality. Like we are in the business of service. Like we are there to serve, right? And to like provide a service to these clients that's going to go above and beyond. And expectations sometimes are very high, and I think you have to be okay with that too. But you also have to know too, like, while you're doing all this pretty stuff, it's like there's so much behind the scenes that I don't think a lot of people see. And even our clients don't see the nitty gritty that's going on every day of like running an office and managing a team and and all the things too. And then also managing, all of our relationships with all these vendors and keeping everybody happy during the process. It's all the things in addition to like what the task at hand is, which is planning an event or planning a wedding and like, making, for the client what they see. But it's like all the things behind the scenes that I don't think sometimes are taken into consideration. And then when you actually get into it and like the days suck, like the hours suck, like a couple of weeks ago too, like we had an invitation that was slightly delayed and we had to get something in, and it was like, we had assembled the invitation, but only so much was done. And I couldn't get the piece until like 6 p.m. And luckily with our post office here, you can mail out till 10 p.m. But like, it was like we were scrambling at the last minute to try to get them into the mail that day so they could be put, but again, unforeseen. But those are the things like you might have plans at night. Well, they're going to change, and like, it's all part of it too. Cause it's like, you got to deliver for these clients at the end of the day. And if you promise to get them out, like, again, be careful what you're promising, but it's like in setting those expectations, but sometimes it happens. And sometimes we have to just like, it's what you're doing. It's what they paid you to do, and you've got to get it done, and I don't know how else to explain that sometimes, where I'm just like, we don't have a 9-to-5 job at all.
No.
And, and sometimes there's like this morning I got into the office, I had to do drop off. I had to go to my daughter's school for 30 minutes to do a chapel thing with her. Went to the office at 8:30, came here, but it's just like, I needed to get a couple things done and out the door before but again, our office hours are 9:30 to 5, but it's like I was there, and just those things too. And like last night I was there till 6:30, so every day it's not like even if you set office hours, you're still going above and you're still staying late. You're still doing stuff early and you're taking work home. That's the other thing too.
Well, and
it doesn't end.
So the thing that I think just people need to realize that this is a business they would want to get into is that you commit to your clients possibly 18 months out. And then your cousin tells you they're getting married that day.
Yeah.
and you've committed. So
Yep.
you're in. And that is one of the things that just is really, again, not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a thing you need to realize. And I think it's just surprising to a lot of people that they're like, oh, like.
I think I've seen this over the years too, of having employees and come and go and things like that too. And like they either get into it and they understand and they love it, or they just are like this event. And I know everybody's life changes, and we've had some that have left because of family, just they've grown, their families are growing, or they're adding, they got married, they have babies and stuff like that too, which I always I'm heartbroken, but I understand. And I also know too the challenges that I have to do. And I think I can't expect everybody to do what I do every day. And I try to be very fair and honest with our team and give time off. And, we have a work from home Fridays and stuff like that too. Just to give them flexibility. And we, basically unlimited PTO, there's certain things like that too, because I get it. Our schedules are nuts sometimes when we're in events, but when we're not, we can have a little bit more flexibility on that end too. But at the same time, events will pop up and you're like, what was planned? I don't know. In 6 weeks, we have to do something now. And there's some things we can't say no to. I mean, I'd love to say no to everything. And I wish we had that ability to if it wasn't, but I'm I have payroll to make. I have, there's a lot of expenses too. So we have to say yes to some of these jobs. And I don't, or it's a legacy client that you're definitely not going to say no to.
Well, you want to say yes. You. It's you're I would, you're I would sooner die than let someone else have that event.
Yeah. So, of course. But I think too, it's also again, there's going to be days that, and it's even, my husband has been great about this over the years too. But even now I have to plan a site visit, and it falls right now on Easter, and it's the only time it's working, and it's just, unfortunately, it's just you're going to be, I'm this is my job. These things pop up, and if it only works for the client and it's an international site visit, unfortunately, all the stars are aligning for everybody else. You kind of have to make these sacrifices. I've missed multiple Mother's Days. I've, worked on my kids' birthdays, and, it's things, we always make it up, but unfortunately that's part of our world. Yeah. And I even remember too, when I got married, I didn't take a honeymoon. I couldn't, because we had a wedding the next weekend for a client, it's things like that too. I'm trying not to ever think my team has to do that, but I think those are the sacrifices as business owners we make. And just kind of know, because we have to keep the doors open and keep everything running. And I do take time, but I'm always working when I'm on vacation. I have spring break.
There's probably in all industries, right?
Oh, and but I'm the next week and going into spring break too. I have traveling stuff with my kids, but I'm still working. It's not, it's not I'm not enjoying, and just, I don't do out of offices either. I can't, because I just is if the clients keep getting out of office constantly, it's okay, wait, we need to, so it's I have to be available, and I set parameters, and we have in our contract too, time frames, and all of our clients are very respectful of that too. And a lot of them don't bother us on the weekends and things like that. But when you get closer to the event, you have to be available, because there's certain things that, guest lists are changing and things have to be answered, and you don't have to feel oh, we'll deal with that on Monday. You can't. And and you have to answer after 5 o'clock, it's just, so, and it's also, I'm the type that I just get it done when it needs to get done, versus putting it off, kind of a thing.
So it's not the mental load of it.
Yeah. And I can be a procrastinator for sure, because I just sometimes, I think in my creative brain too, it's I kind of love having the deadline of being a little bit closer, because it pulls the creativity out of me more. It's not the best thing, and my team hates it, but I just that's how but there's other things too where I'm we can get ahead of these things and just be in advance of where we so we don't have that level of stress coming down the road, or that type of thing too. So it's always something I'm learning to try to do better myself, but
we all are. Are all the people who are building their businesses. I think it always makes me feel better to know other people are in the same boat, and I'm not the only person who was texting from the labor and delivery room. But
literally, I think after both my kids were born, it was the same thing too. I was at a site visit the day before I went into labor, and I was a week early, so thank God it didn't happen, because I was down in Boca Grande. But I just was and then 4 hours later, I was responding to emails, and but that's, as business owners, that's what you're doing. It's my personality. I'm probably not the best, but I think at the same time, I'd rather just answer it now than have to deal with it later, because then it's going to pile up too, and I just think, again, getting ahead of it that way. But But that's also, I think, entrepreneurial and like being a business owner, that's what it comes with. It's just, you don't get the flexibility. I don't get to, and I don't go home. I want my team to be able to go home and shut off at 9, like at 5 o'clock. And if they don't want to respond, that's on them. But like, and that's totally fine. And I respect that, but I can't do that, so.
I say it's like every year, like my New Year's resolution, I'm going to get better at that. And it's a challenge. I feel like it is something that is like free to have like more balance, but I don't think you can be an entrepreneur and have like that. I think it's just going to be out of balance. And like sometimes you're going to be a little more on this side. And
Yeah.
a little more on that side. You just hope in the end it kind of works out. But
Balance, I think, is like bullshit.
I think it's like, it's like, if I want to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I mean,
call me.
I think I've gotten a pretty good work-life balance figured out that works for me.
Exactly.
It's not the best always. And there's moments too where I'm lacking in other areas where I'm, being successful in something. So, and usually, it's like your loved ones usually get the short end of the stick most of the time. I think it's part of it too. It's just, that's the part you just have to figure out what works for you and what works for your family and what works for your life and things like that too. And I think I'm also, as I've gotten older, like certain things aren't important to me anymore. Like I'm not worried about like if I have to say no to something, I'm fine with saying no to it now, where I'm not worried what that person's going to think or that type of thing too. Or, it's like, and I will make my time and the things that are really important to me, I will not miss. And I will be very clear with clients and things like that too, of letting them know. But again, setting expectations in advance. But I think there's other times too where I'm just like, it's part of the job. You have to,
Exactly.
you got to make exceptions for some things. And
well, and this is just on, as we wrap up, there is something we've been asking all our guests. We call it the lightning round.
Yeah.
And it's just 3 questions we are asking everyone. So the first question is, what is your hype song? And we find that as if you have to, if you're going into a big meeting, maybe you play it for yourself, or if you are getting ready for a big event and it's just something that'll fire you up, or you play it in your car. And we've had all kinds of answers, so it doesn't have to be
so funny. I am so not musical. It's like I don't know. I'm more of the type, I actually, when I'm driving in the car, I usually have nothing on. Like I like sometimes, because I just like, I don't need, and I think also too, when my teens in my car, they realize that and I'm like, oh, I should probably put my radio on, because but I think it's my only quiet time sometimes. And it also, that's where a lot of my thoughts go. But I will say anything country, like I've kind of went back to my roots. Like I loved country as a kid, got away from, like didn't love it so much. Now I'm kind of back to it too. So it's like, I'm like a Lainey Wilson, Ella Langley kind of vibe, like gets me kind of like, I don't know. I just like, and like the good country of like something that's got a little bit of an upbeat too, but I don't really have like a specific song.
But that's the
yeah. Like I just, it kind of, it either mellows me out or it gets me like in a calm kind of mindset too. But it's also like the girl power. I just love them right now too, because I think they're just like these strong women, and like watching Lainey Wilson, like where she's kind of come from too, like kind of watching her grow when she like did her debut on, I think it was Yellowstone or something. Now she's like, I don't know. That's kind of fun that way.
All right. Next question. What is your current favorite Tampa Bay restaurant?
I actually love Paul's Fusion Kitchen. It's in a strip mall right off of Kennedy. And I just love their food. I don't know why. It's been kind of like my little hidden secret, but they have the best, like, I don't know if it's like an almond crusted salmon, but they just like it's just so good. And they have a noodle too that I can't remember right now, but like that's probably one of my favorites right now. I don't know why.
That's a hidden gem.
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden gem, like not the normal, like everybody would say kind of a thing, but go check it out though. The Paul's Fusion Kitchen. Go support them, because they're like this tiny little thing. It's so cute. And it's a husband and wife too, so they're very sweet and
so sweet.
Yeah, hard workers.
What is the best business gift you ever received?
The best business gift I think I've ever received is honestly a compliment from a gentleman that I really respect from a business standpoint too. And I think the level of respect that I think he always provided to me too was like above and beyond. And again, like we kind of struggle with the female male, like, and it was never ever that relationship. But I think on multiple occasions too, a couple compliments and things like that too, in regards to how I run the business and how like the process has gone and things like that too, which I know is like not a physical gift, but I think that's more meaningful to me than anything, because I just like it solidified that like I'm doing something okay. Like I don't suck at this or like, you know, it's like, okay, this is actually, yeah. So I think that was probably one of the best gifts I've had is just like, I think it's verbal validation of like, you've got this and you're doing a great job. And it's impressive like that you've grown the business to where you are, and to have somebody at that magnitude, I think, say that to me, I just was like, wow, thanks, you know, like not expected, but like super, super grateful for that.
I'm sure that was incredibly meaningful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This was wonderful. And we just really appreciate everything you shared with us.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. Yeah.
What Anna had built at Anna Lucia Events is a genuine reflection of who she is. The artistry, the standards, the heart behind every event. As someone who's lived in this world, I know how rare that is. If you're planning an event and want it done at the highest level, head to AnnaLuciaEvents.com. And if today's episode inspired you, share it with someone who's building something they believe in. I'm Tracie Domino, and this is The Bay Builds. We'll see you next.